What's up, everybody? Welcome to day 20. I had to look at my watch. Day 28 of the I'm Curious to Know project, the 28th of May. Daily conversations with world-class athletes, innovators, and unique personalities from the endurance sports world. Today's guest is an amazing guest, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with her. And I'd love to welcome Kara Goucher to the show. Kara, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited for today, and I alluded to it in the show notes that I want to talk less about results in your athletic history and more about the work you're doing now. But I want to share an interesting, funny story of how we first met. We were connected through a mutual friend of ours, Kevin Rutherford, the CEO of Noon, who we had on the show earlier this month. And I had this idea that I wanted to surprise my wife, who is a fan of yours. I wanted to surprise her with a meeting with you. So we were visiting Boulder, and I told her that we were going to meet a friend of mine, Tyler Butterfield, who's a pro triathlete. And we're sitting at the coffee shop, and she's like, do I really have to be here? Like, why? You and Ty can talk. Like, you guys are just going to chat for hours, and I'm just going to sit here like the third wheel. So so she wanted to leave. She's like, I'll just go home. I can come back and pick you up. And I'm like, no, you have to wait. And then all of a sudden, Kara starts walking down the sidewalk. I shout out, Kara, hey, it's Travis. You come over, and then we have an amazing hour of conversation, and you surprised her, and she was over the moon.
Oh, she was awesome. And we even got to run again after she had your daughter. And I mean, that seems like a lifetime ago, though. I mean, you have 2 children now.
I know. That was so funny. I've always been indebted to you for that. That got me some brownie points for sure. So I appreciate that.
Oh, good.
How have you, lifetime ago, of course, and we're all obviously dealing with this current situation of COVID, and where it feels like life is going by at a million miles an hour, but also standing still at the same time. How have you and Adam and Colt been dealing with the current circumstances?
You know, we're doing okay. We've taken it pretty seriously. So we've been locked down in our house. We haven't been traveling or going to restaurants or having, seeing friends. So that's getting a little old now. But honestly, I feel every time someone asks me about this, I feel bad really saying anything because people are losing their jobs and people are dying. And we're just sort of stuck in our nice home with our big yard. So homeschooling was a bit of a challenge, but that's done. And so we're just sort of okay, yeah. I mean, we live in Boulder. I feel I want to see my friends again and I want to train with people. But that's sort of small potatoes compared to what other people are dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all perspective. I was lucky to have Courtney Dauwalter on the show yesterday. She's amazing, obviously an incredible ultra runner. And you personally kind of dipped your toe in the water. Well, more than a toe. You launched yourself into it with both feet in the ultra world and the trail world last year. Tell me about that experience. What was that like coming from your career on the road and the track to getting out on the trails and in the ultra world?
They're 2 totally different sports. And I think, there was a lot of hype before the Leadville Trail Marathon. And, that was physically the hardest thing I've ever done. I've never raced that high. I definitely made a lot of, rookie mistakes. I'm not super good on anything technical. I'm definitely not great at super high elevation, but it was such an awesome experience. I mean, the race itself was horrible, but the aftermath of just such cool people, such a cool community, the welcomeness of it, if you bomb a road marathon and you come in with all this hype, there's a lot of chatter for a while after about did that person deserve all this attention? And, it was overplayed. There, no one cared. I mean, I almost didn't go to the award ceremony because I was embarrassed. And I ended up going, and it was so awesome. The people were welcome to the community. And so it was great. And then I did a 50K in November. And I actually think I liked that even more. I liked going further. And also at that point, I had a little bit more experience. I realized it's okay to walk when you're tired and going up a steep hill and stuff. So I'm definitely curious about going into a 50 miler at some point. I'm just not sure when.
Yeah, classic. Start on the track, go to the marathon, 50K, 50 mile, and then all of a sudden you and Courtney are dueling it out over 240 miles.
That'll never happen. She is such an amazing ultra and trail athlete. And that's the funny thing is I it doesn't matter what good road shape I'm in. I could never run with her on the trails.
Yeah.
They're just two different athletes. And so I think that's been interesting too, is there's a lot of like, well, you're good at this, you should be good at this. And they don't necessarily line up, but it's still been really fun. And at my age, to discover a whole new way to experience running has been awesome.
Did it help you reconnect with your love for running? And I'm not saying that you fell out of love with running, but did it help you kind of find a new love and passion for the sport?
For sure, because the trail running for me is not motivated by performance. Yeah. So most of my life, it's been motivated by performance. I'm trying to make X team. I'm trying to run X time. Where this was really just accomplishing a goal of doing this experience. And so, I mean, I had so many runs where I would just turn around and be like, I feel so alive right now, even though I just ran an 18-minute mile. You know, I feel like really alive at the top of this mountain. So it's been great for me. I mean, I've been addicted to running since I started organized running almost 30 years ago now. Yeah. And I'm never going to stop, but it's been super fun for me to experience something new at this point in my life. And I just love it. It's fun.
Yeah. Has it also given you a little bit of an outlet? You obviously, you know, we can get into the work that you're doing now, particularly around the Clean Sport Collective and those things. But there's been some moments in your life recently where, you know, you've gone through some hard conversations and some hard times, and the social media backlash and all of these things. Has running and getting in the trails and getting out in nature given you a little bit of an outlet to get away from some of that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm so thankful for running. I had this amazing experience in career, and I got to experience the highest highs. But the last couple of years they've been hard. And if I didn't have running, I don't know what I would be relying on right now. Like, obviously, I have great family and friends, but running has been something that every morning I go and do, and every morning when I'm feeling anxious, it helps me feel more in control of my life, feel more control of the power within myself. So running, I mean, I've said it before, but like, running's the greatest gift that I ever got in my life. Really. It's gotten me through so much.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of that stuff. The last 2 years you mentioned have been hard. There's the Salazar, the Nike stuff. There's a lot of that stuff coming up. There's, very recent stuff with Lance's 30 for 30. There's been backlash around some of the conversations you've had on Clean Sport Collective, but maybe just give us a bit of a recap without going down that hole of like, what are some of those things that you've really been bravely standing up to and standing up for over those last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation with the Nike Oregon Project and Dr. Brown and Alberto Salazar specifically has been really hard. And there's been, preparation for a trial, testifying, things that the public doesn't see that were going on for a long time. And then publicly, fighting for rights for female athletes in pregnancy, supporting Mary Cain. That was a very difficult time for me. When Mary Cain spoke out, of course, I wanted to support her and I believe her. And I absolutely just think she's an amazing champion for women. But I had to relive some of my past that I wasn't really proud of, seeing teammates shamed and not sticking up for them. And that was right before actually my 50K. And I almost didn't go because I was just so low. I couldn't stop crying. I had called my old teammate and apologized, but I just felt like really sad that I wasn't the kind of person I want to be. And that stuff is it's just heavy, right? Mm-hmm. It's just really heavy. So it's been hard, and it is hard to really look back at stuff that I'm not necessarily proud of. And so having to relive a lot of that stuff has been difficult, but it's worth it because it's bringing bigger change, and it's education, and it's exposing things that really shouldn't be going on in our sport. So it's all for the good. It's just kind of sucky when you're in the middle of it.
Totally. And I want to acknowledge you for being so brave to do that, because a lot of people are probably in the same position as you, where they've experienced that, they've been a part of it, they've seen it, they have an opinion on it, but they're keeping it to themselves. And that's the easy choice to make. But you're choosing to use your voice and create a new legacy for yourself for the good of the sport and for good of the future generations. So there has to be some acknowledgement for that. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I want to talk about the Clean Sport Collective. I remember the launch and the excitement of it a few years ago, and getting behind it and taking the pledge personally. And then there's been a bit of a pivot and a shift to content and creating a podcast. But I'd love to hear what's the current status of the Clean Sport Collective, and if people are listening, how can they get involved, and kind of what is the goal of the collective?
Yeah, the collective is to just change the culture, and that we all, whether you're a fan or a coach or a brand or an athlete, we all together can help make that change. It launched in, I want to say 2016. And I think we just weren't really ready. I wasn't a board member at the time, but I was definitely involved. And we got so many pledges and it was so exciting, but we just didn't really we didn't really know what we were trying to accomplish. And it was difficult. And we were trying to raise money for drug testing, but there wasn't really any money coming in. And we realized we were sort of in over our head. And then in 2018, or maybe it was 2019. I don't even know anymore. But we went to Shanna Burnett and I, who founded the Clean Sport Collective with Kevin Rutherford and Kevin Burnett. We went to anti-doping conference in London. Yeah. And it really lit a fire under my butt. It was like, what am I doing? Like, I need to do something. And we have this platform that we started where thousands of people took this pledge, and we kind of just let it fall apart. Like, we need to get back on the horse and get some stuff done. So we launched the podcast with the help of Chris McClung. It never would have happened without him, because we don't have, like I was telling you, I'm terrible with everything that's technological. Like, it's just not my thing. So we needed someone who could actually help us through that. And he has a lot of podcast experience, and it just kind of started to grow. And from there, we were able to, talk to other bigger people with more influence in this area. So now our goal is really, one of our bigger goals for this year was to get our educational platform done. One of our goals is to have an educational platform for youth that athletes that are really passionate about clean sport can take into their communities. Yeah. That's kind of been disrupted right now by COVID, because all of our grants that we were asking for have been put on pause. But we're still really passionate about doing that. I think that's our next big goal we really want to accomplish. And then we just want to keep having this conversation. We want to highlight clean athletes, but we also want to learn from athletes that have taken the wrong path. And we just want everyone in on it. So you can go to cleansport.org and you can sign the pledge no matter who you are, no matter what it is that you do in life. You can be a part of this collective together.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, and I've been a big fan of Kevin's and yours and Shanna's for the whole time, and I think that there's a lot of good that we can all do from this, and rallying the troops, so to speak. I'd love to hear about your experience in some of these conversations you've had. You mentioned that the goal really is to celebrate clean athletes, provide education and knowledge for people who are going through the ranks and experiencing what it is to be, an elite athlete. But then there's also the people who are dopers, people like Tyler Hamilton and Floyd Landis, who you have had on the show, which may seem, to some people looking in a strange decision. And I'm sure you've heard that from some people as well. But you described it perfectly to me before the show, that there is an element of wanting to understand why that can then help people to make better decisions in the future. So why don't you tell me about your experience with having some of those type of people on the show?
Yeah, that's been really controversial for us, which has been interesting. Lots of backlash, lots of negativity, lots of unfollow. But we feel, and I really personally feel very strongly, that our goal is to highlight clean athletes and clean brands. But if we only talk to clean athletes that have always made the right choice, and we only talk to brands who are supporting clean athletes, we're not really learning about the culture that makes someone that manipulate someone into making that choice or support someone making a bad choice. And I think I was telling you before that I always believed it was black and white. Like, you're a doper or you're not. You're an asshole or you're a good person. And in 2016, I had lunch with Tyler Hamilton, and I almost didn't go. I was like, we are not taking any pictures. I don't want anyone to know that this happened. And I was a little bit rude to him, which I regret now, definitely. But in that conversation, I saw he was super open. He would answer any question I asked him. And I saw a person who was really like regretful. He understood that he had ruined a lot of people's lives, that he had disappointed his family, the people he holds their opinions at highest value, and he had disappointed them. He had let them down, his community. He had ruined certain aspects of his life over this. And I just started to feel, I don't know, like I started to feel bad for him. And I never thought I could feel that way about someone who had robbed clean athletes. But I just started to think we need to hear from people like Tyler. We need to hear from people who chose the wrong path, but now want to fix it. And, a lot of people have been saying to me, they only said that because they got caught. Well, that might be true, but they're still willing to talk about it. And I think it's really important. And, 90% of our podcasts are going to be with clean athletes, 95%. But we are going to talk to people who took the wrong path because we want to learn what was that like that made you do something that you knew was wrong.
Yeah. I want to take a step back. I really want to know, I'm curious to know, why are you so outspoken about this? There's so many people who feel the same way, but you've chosen to stand up this way. Why does it mean so much to you?
I don't know. I think it's how I was raised. And I think, there's nothing wrong with not being the best, but there's definitely something wrong with shortcutting your way to get there. And I just feel like for most of my career, everyone around me felt that way. And even when I was in the Oregon Project at the beginning, I really felt like for a few years, it was great. And we were doing everything the right way. And, when I was finally exposed to something that I knew was wrong, I had all of that history to get to me to say no. But I often wonder, it's easy to stand here and be like, I would never do that, blah, blah, blah. But I had this amazing support system, including my husband. And I do wonder sometimes, if I hadn't been married to Adam, if I didn't have a family that held me accountable, what would my story be like? And so I just really care about it. And I just want people to see that it never pays off, doesn't pay off. And running has done so much for my life. And I want that for other people in a pure way, like I've been able to have it.
Yeah. Hearing you talk like that and hearing you talk about the way that you approach the conversation with Tyler, I'm getting a sense that the empathy that you're able to show for him is actually going to be your greatest superpower. Like, you can have a really strong voice of, here's my experience with doping. Here's why it means so much for me to be outspoken. But you have this emotional intelligence to say, okay, I had the support system and I still may have made a different decision. So what can I do to provide as many tools as possible to the future generations so they too can make the decision that I was able to make?
Yeah. And look, I also talking to Floyd, I just wanted to reach through the computer and give him a hug. I'm just going to admit it. But because I feel empathy for both of these men and other people, Yulia Stepanov would be one of those people, it doesn't mean I'm excusing. Yeah. And I'm still horrified at what they did. I'm still angry at what they did. But listening to them talk me through it, I feel bad. I want to go back to that point in their lives where they made that decision, and I want to hold their hand and say, you don't have to do that. There's another way. So just to be clear, I'm not saying like, and now they're my heroes. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they are human, and I think we can learn from them. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. And I think that, a lot of this is obviously coming up because of the document 30 for 30 with Lance. And the retort that I'm hearing and we've heard for so many years is, everyone else was doing it, I didn't have a choice. And I think that's complete bullshit, because everyone has a choice. And there's so many people that we've never heard of because they made that choice. And that's the thing that gets me so angry, is that people's careers and livelihoods and opportunity to live out a childhood dream was stolen away from them because those people didn't make the same choice. So I'm with you on the, let's not make heroes and put them on a pedestal. Let's learn from from those mistakes. What's your answer to like everyone was doing it, so I had no choice?
Yeah, I mean, I hate that argument, right? It's so weak. And or just let everyone do it. They're just leveling the playing field. Well, that's been scientifically proven that's not true. People respond to EPO differently. People respond to testosterone differently. And just like you said, not everyone's doing it. And we just don't know them because they chose to not do it. So they didn't get to ride in the Tour de France.
Yeah.
Is it rife in the sport at the very top level? Yeah. But what if the culture didn't support that? Yeah. And maybe we don't see slower times and we don't see as much power on the bike, but we see better races and we see more interesting storylines. I often think it's a really good point because I feel like we don't often hear clean athletes. We want to say everyone's doing it. There's so many great stories that just aren't being told. And I think there's an American runner, and you probably know who she is, Molly Huddle. We all know who she is. But I often think of her, if she was racing a clean field, how much more she would be celebrated. I mean, she has run so fast in every event through the half marathon. She has the American record in the 10K. She had the American record in the 5K. And she's run well in the marathon as well. Obviously, she podiumed in New York. But if she was always facing a level field, I feel like she would be like so much higher. And so those are the athletes that I'm fighting for. Those athletes should be elevated. And there's a lot of clean athletes out there, but they are being hidden by athletes that are making the wrong choice.
I think cycling is probably the poster child for doping. I think we can agree on that they've done a horrible job at creating a culture that has manifested in the stories that we see today. But we'd be remiss not to talk about athletics. We'd be remiss not to talk about NFL and baseball and mixed martial arts and all of these other sports that the culture may not be so overt and openly talked about, but it still exists.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone's immune. Even ultra running, I don't think is immune. Athletics has a lot of problems, and we like to point the finger at cycling. We're not as bad as them, but we all have problems. And I think we don't want to always talk about it because it's uncomfortable and we don't really know who's cheating and who's not cheating. But I think every single sport, I mean, wasn't there just the other day, like some car racer, like on the computer, but cheated? There's cheating everywhere. And so it's easy to point the finger at cycling, just like it was easy to point the finger at Russia. But everybody has some problems.
In the spirit of, solution driven and what can we do to make an impact and what can we do to make a change? Like, what do you see as the path forward? You're doing your part for sure, but like, what can the broader community and what can fans of sports and participants do to help carve this path forward?
Yeah, I think that if all the fans really wanted to see clean sport, they could have a huge impact. I think if they demanded it of the companies that they're buying products from, like what if you said, I will not spend another dime on a shoe or a skate or a shirt from any company that has someone on their roster that's been caught. I mean, that would make a huge impact if everybody did that. So I think it's like using your purchasing dollars wisely and using your voice and driving your community around you to care and signing the pledge and just supporting what's happening. I really feel like, I know that this is really like, nah, but I feel like when the culture becomes that it's unacceptable, it will follow. So if we can all talk about it more and we can celebrate clean athletes more and we can share our sadness and our disgust, whatever it is, when someone gets caught, let's not make it a taboo topic anymore. Let's talk about it so that we can create a culture around all of our sports where it matters and where someone who comes forward and tells the truth of what they saw is looked at and celebrated rather than made, bitter, angry, whatever. Like, let's just change the way we look at everything.
Yeah. I think that's the trouble. I think as fans, there's an apathy around like, oh, well, whatever, it's a good spectacle. Like, it doesn't impact me, or it does, they're hitting more home runs. They're hitting each other harder during the play, or they're riding up the mountain as fast as they possibly could. So I think there's this apathy around like, and some cynicism too. Like as a fan of endurance sports, I'm so cynical about the results that happen across the board. You know, growing up as a triathlete and thinking back to those days, and even now, like wondering of those people who are successful, how many of them are doing it the right way? And that's a horrible feeling to have as a fan, like being cynical of results that you should be applauding.
It is hard. Look, I know way more than I wish I knew, but I'm still a huge fan of track and field. And I have to, when I watch a track meet, I have to make a decision. Am I going to get angry at what I see, or am I just going to like watch it and feel happy for the people that I know that I believe in? And I've been able to do that for the most part. I've definitely had my moments where I just want to like throw my shoe at the TV and be like, I hate this. Why are we watching this? Why am I wasting my time? But in the end of the day, I am a fan. But I think we need to like sort of take a step back of like, what makes sport? Do we always need to see records? That's gonna get people to dope. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to see a world record or you want to see, you know, like the baseball thing, that's just promoting doping, because we're asking athletes to go up against things that we know weren't real and then beat them. So what if we just say we want to see good head-to-head competition? We want to see good camaraderie. Like, what if we sort of change what it is that we want to see? I bet the sports don't get less interesting. I bet it gets more interesting. Let's humanize it, you know?
Yep. Yeah, celebrate. I think we need to find a better way to celebrate the participants and the people within sport. It doesn't always have to be stories of champions and, you know, pushing the limits of physical performance. It can be a different level of storytelling. The other thing that I think about, and I'm sure you have an opinion on this, is the argument around this was my only way out. You know, I had to become an athlete so that I could provide for my family and I can, you know, provide for the people that are relying on me. And this was the only chance I had, and I couldn't take the risk that I wouldn't make it. So I had to do everything I could to make it. What is your kind of thought around that? Because there is that societal element that we need to consider as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know what that's like, right? I mean, if running didn't pan out for me, I had a college education, I had a husband with a job, there was other avenues for me. So I'm not going to say I know what that's like. I mean, there could be an athlete from Ethiopia or Kenya that gets fourth or third at a marathon, and they're set up for generations. They can buy a hotel, they can provide for their family. I don't know what those stresses are like.
Yeah.
I still don't think that it erases the bad choice, but it certainly puts it in a light that I cannot possibly imagine what that is like.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just goes back to then changing the overall culture of, you know, like, what are we celebrating, and is it only about performance? Can we celebrate people as people? Can we put more importance on the people and how they act in their communities and things like that? Because and that stuff makes me sad, because I believe that elite sport is not a right, it's a privilege, and there's rules, and you agree to those rules every time you step to a starting line, every time you start a game, whatever it is, you're agreeing. It's not your right to be on that starting line.
Yeah.
It is a privilege, and you have to follow the rules. But there are complications like that they break my heart, because for someone else, it is a way out.
Yeah. I appreciate your perspective on that. And I think back to a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago with Britton Barbie, who is an African-American guy. We connected through endurance sports, and he's on his own endurance sports journey. And he was really deeply impacted by the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And our conversation really was around, you know, we're never going to eradicate racism, but what can we do to make it percentages better so that thousands and tens of thousands of people's lives are saved? And I think that this is a similar conversation where we may not in our lifetime be able to eradicate doping. It may never happen, but what can we be doing to make percentages of changes to getting to a better place?
Yeah, I agree.
The other thing that I want to talk about another thought that I had watching the Lance documentary with Michael Rasmussen, who's a famous doper, you know, did everything he possibly could to dope. And his comment was, we spend so much of our life risking our lives in the peloton and taking risk and chances that there's no reason for us to consider the harm that would have come up from the doping. So that was another perspective that I've actually never heard before around, like, he thought he was going to die on the road anyway, so what does it matter?
Yeah, that line stood out to me. I actually wrote his name down when I was watching the documentary, because that line, I was like, well, that's a point I've never considered before, you know?
And it was so succinct too. It was like succinct. It was like, there it is, factual, and then like next scene. And I'm like,
yeah, I was like, wait, let's talk.
Totally.
Totally. And I mean, again, I can't relate to what he's saying because I don't do a sport where my life is at risk. But I do think, so I thought that was very interesting. I wish that they had dug into that a little bit more. I mean, I would love to like talk to him about that. But again, I feel like if I really, really think about it, I think that's just like another justification.
Yeah.
And the athletes that take this path, they have justified it. You know, we just interviewed Floyd Landis and he talked us through his choice, through his like absolute 3-year journey to deciding to dope. Yep. And he made the justification. It took him a while to get there, but then he did. And I think if I just take a step back and take away like, oh, that's interesting, I want to talk to that guy. I feel like, again, it's a justification to do something the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be everyone's going to find a way to justify it. I understand that. That was a perspective that I'd love to dig
in. No, I'd never heard that. Yeah. I was like, that's good. Yeah.
Let's talk about current climate and the ability to test. You know, I've been really interested in how drug testing is even happening now. And I know I've read some reports from USADA around how there's those mail-in tests, but athletes had to kind of volunteer for the program. My concern is that it's all of a sudden become the Wild West again a little bit, where testing is not possible during this time. And what are people going to be doing to kind of take advantage of that?
I think that's a real concern, and I think that's a real possibility. I applaud USADA for at least trying to do something during this time with the virtual test. Like, you have to have someone watching you, but is it foolproof? No, you know. But at least it's something, right? I mean, at least it's like they're trying something. I am worried about what happens next year. I'm worried about all the thousands and thousands of athletes right now that aren't having someone knock on their door for understandable reasons. Yeah. But yeah, now they're able to, if they want, cheat and get away with it and get a leg up on everyone else. It'll be really interesting to see. Interesting because I'm not involved anymore. You know what I'm saying? If I was racing, it would not be interesting. It would be horrifying. But it will be interesting to see what happens with performance next year. I think it's a scary time, and I think it's a real concern, and but I don't have an answer for it, because I also believe that we should be taking COVID-19 seriously as well.
Totally. We have Noah Bloom threw up a really interesting question. I think this could kind of help us change tact a little bit here. With so many headwinds and unknowns, what counts as a measurable goal, a win, a metric, a small achievement that can improve either the fight for opportunities for women athletes or against doping? So maybe start with women athletes. What to you is a measurable goal that we can say that we were successful in improving circumstances for women in sport?
I think for women in sport, we have a couple unique challenges. One being that some of us want to become mothers. So I would like to see a whole systematic change where, we have seen contractual changes in the last year, which has been really exciting. But I also wish there was, daycare at the track meets and places for people to nurse and all of these things that would just make women's experience easier, especially when you're racing some of these big races. That's just my background, so that's what I always go to. But I had to fight with races to get an extra plane ticket to bring my mom in to watch my son so I could get a good night's sleep. I shouldn't be fighting with anyone. You're promoting these athletes as mothers. You should be really considering the whole package. And it's a better story for everyone. It's like, it's more relatable to a lot of people to have a mom there that has a child. So I just would like to, I'm super excited about the contractual changes, because I feel like for me, coming back from my pregnancy put me in years and years of an injury cycle.
Yep.
I came back before my body was healed. I would get injured. I'd be butting up against the 3-month mark where I have to race or I'm going to get reduced. So I just go ahead and race even though my body wasn't ready. So then I'd start training again, then I get injured again. And it just put me in this cycle for like 4 years where I just could not stay healthy. What if I didn't have to race for a year? I probably would have been racing at a higher level more consistently for those 3 years instead of being in an injury cycle. So I'm excited about the contractual changes and that, companies are starting to think long-term with athletes. And then also I just feel that I think the Mary Cain sharing her story really opened the lid on the body shaming and the inability for women in sport to have anywhere to go. I just feel like we need more women in positions of power. We still don't have women in sports marketing. We still don't have women as CEOs of these big sports companies. I'm not saying you just have to hire women just because, but when you're writing a contract about a woman's return from pregnancy and there isn't a woman in the room, that's a problem, right? There needs to be a woman in sports marketing writing these contracts who's actually can relate to what these women are going to face. So we need just more women around that women can go to. And it just helps everybody. It helps the men understand better. It helps them understand boundaries better. And it helps everybody to just have more women in the room.
Yeah. Love it. What about doping? What do you think are the, percentage points we can aim for to see some positive change there?
Oh, geez, it's so hard. I mean, it's sort of a double-edged sword because you want to see more positive tests because that shows that the tests are working. But every time we have a positive test, it's like, oh, why do we even care about sport anymore? So I would like to, again, it comes back to culture. I'd like to see it as when it's a positive test, it's seen as like a celebration. Wow, it's working. We care. The fact that it took me 12 years to get a medal that I earned 12 years earlier is unacceptable. Things like that need to turn around quicker. I was talking to one of the best athletes in the US one year, and she was at the World Championships, and she told me, well, I'm just aiming for 5th and hoping for an upgrade down the line. That's unacceptable. It needs to work quicker. We need to be retesting samples earlier and not with more frequency. And there needs to be a lot more transparency. I feel like there isn't a lot of trust right now, like, well, whose samples are being retested and are certain athletes protected? And so I would like to see more transparency from all of the acronyms, the WADAs and the USADAs and the UK anti-doping, everybody. And I mean, of course, I want to see more positives because that shows that it's working.
Yeah. Small goals you have, Cara. What do you shoot for the stars with sort of stuff? I want to talk more about the podcast. The benefit I get from having these amazing conversations with people like yourself is I get to learn so much. I get to turn a mirror on myself and think about how I see the world, use your knowledge and experience to go out and be better for myself. What are some of those some of the more impactful conversations you've had where you've had this feeling of like, wow, this is a life-changing conversation. I'm so glad that I had it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously both Tyler and Floyd were really meaningful to me, just to see the other side and to feel empathy and to think about how I want to treat people and how I want to treat the next generation so that they don't feel like they're going to be put in those positions. We've interviewed a lot of my friends, which is fun. I think we got to interview Jessie Diggins, Olympic gold medalist skier. And that was super exciting for me. I mean, I was like smiling the whole time. I was feeling her energy. I ordered her book right after the podcast, just hearing her positivity and her love for the build up, not just the race. I thought that was a really great episode and I loved talking to her. I basically just feel really lucky. I get to talk to all these really cool people. And as we grow, we keep getting more people willing to come on or asking to come on. So it's just been really fun. We have never had anyone say no. The only time that someone didn't come on was when she was prepping for the Olympic trials and she got an injury and had to pull out and she didn't want to come on, which is totally understandable. But everyone we've asked is like, yeah, I want to come on. When can I come on? Which has been amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Without kind of opening up the playbook too much, do you have anyone coming up that you're really excited about?
Yes, I'm super, super excited about this Sunday. A personal hero of mine we are interviewing, but we also have some really fun people in the running industry coming up. And I would actually encourage people to go back. We interviewed Allison Felix last year, and she talked about the culture of doping and sprinting, and I had never heard anyone talk about that. And that's the first interview I've ever done where I was nervous. I was like shaking because I'm like, Allison Felix, she's the most decorated track and field athlete of all time. So I'm excited. I just feel like we're building. I just got in touch with someone from the swimming community, which I'm really excited about. We've never had a swimmer on. So, we're happy to take suggestions and introductions, and we just want to keep it rolling.
Yeah, very cool. Now you know how I felt before this show. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I actually was, because this is like new territory. This is this isn't an easy topic. This isn't softball questions I'm throwing your way. So I was a little nervous, but here we are, and we've made it through to 40 minutes already, and that's gone by like it was 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to end here with 3 questions that I ask every day. But before I go into that, I really want to make sure that I applaud you, and everyone knows how much admiration I have for you, for the work that you're doing and standing out on the ledge by yourself. What it must feel like for you sometimes, but I'm so proud of you for standing up and for what you believe in. And I just want you to know I admire you hugely for that.
That really means a lot to me. It's been really nice getting to know you and Lauren. You did a piece on me a couple of years ago for Inner Voice that was one of the most proud pieces I've ever been able to share. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I love hearing that it's so meaningful for you as well. So this is a big love fest here. I love it. So the 3 questions I like to end with are really topical around how you're dealing with COVID and the lockdown period. And hopefully this will bring a smile to your face as we do this. So number 1, what's one thing that's changed for you during this isolation period that you want to keep once we go back to whatever our new normal is?
I would say 2 things. I've been FaceTiming with my grandma, who I absolutely love, but just see her like once or twice a year. And so it's been life-changing to talk to her on, weekly or bi-weekly. And I really want to keep that up. And then I think secondly, I've had a lot more uninterrupted time with my son. Thanks to home learning, which wasn't my favorite, but we had all this uninterrupted, no technology around us time together. And I really want to continue to make that a priority in my life.
Yeah, very cool. It's been, I feel very grateful for, it's been crazy and hard, but feel very grateful for the opportunity to spend so much time with Lauren and the kids. So I can feel you. Yeah. Second question, what's one thing that you thought was important before this period that you're happy to leave in the past?
Oh, gosh, that's a really hard question. Your clothes. A couple things. I used to go to the grocery store 4 days a week, and now I go once every 7 or 8 days. And I'm like, wow, I have all this time now that I was wasting at the grocery store that I didn't have to do. So I definitely want to continue with that. And then also just worrying about my hair is so gray right now, and worrying about that kind of stuff. And I'm realizing that it doesn't really matter. I'm wearing sweatpants right now while I talk to you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Kind of nice.
Yeah, I don't think I've worn jeans for the whole time. I'm
I'd be afraid to try to put mine on, actually.
Yeah,
but it's just it's made me realize some of the sort of superficial things that I used to worry about really don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. Well put. This is my favorite one. 3rd question, what's been your most memorable moment of joy during this period?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. I think, there's been so many little daily moments, honestly, and my son has been sleeping in our bed. He's been afraid, he's 9 and he's too big to be in there, but waking up the 3 of us in the same bed has been just lovely. Having my husband is normally behind me. He's been working from home, which has been great, having his energy in the house. I mean, he's usually gone all day. So all that stuff has really brought me joy. But I did receive my silver medal at the very beginning of quarantine, which was a pretty amazing thing to experience in quarantine.
Amazing.
That did bring me joy.
I bet. That's really cool. You're amazing. I really appreciate you for joining me and for everything you do. So anyone who's listening, go and check out the Clean Sport Collective podcast. Amazing guests in the past. Go back and check out the backlog and stay tuned for more to come. And be kind, everyone. Be kind on social media too. That's an important thing for us to talk about. So
for sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course, you're amazing. I appreciate it. I can't wait to stay in touch. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.